Hello, and welcome to this presentation of Packing a Punch, Teacher Leader Professional Development, be provided by myself, Ash Taylor. So to begin with, a brief description, K-Tips at Work. So this presentation will attempt to share best practices from this teacher's perspective in combination with K-Tips that allow us to energize our teaching and help our students reach their potential. So in this presentation, we will be discussing the following standards. I say we, I meant me. I will be discussing the following standards. The Learner and Learning Standard 1 regarding learning development, the Learner and Learning Standard 3 regarding learning environments, the Content Knowledge Standard 4 regarding application of content, Instructional Practices Standard 6 assessment, Instructional Practices Standard 8 instructional strategies, and professional responsibilities and collaboration. Sorry, my video is covering that up. So leadership and collaboration. All right, so that's where we're headed. Starting with learning development. No two learners are exactly the same. And that's really obvious to anyone who's been in a classroom for probably a day. But what I thought was especially important, pointed out through the standards, is that it isn't just that learners aren't the same in the way they learn or the speed at which they learn, but there are social, emotional, all sorts of things that are going on with our kids, especially, my sixth graders who are, their brains are still developing, they're still, learning how to think critically. So when we talk about critical thinking, they may not have ever had that skill before. And so there's always something to keep in mind. They do go at their own pace. So I have a first period class that is advanced placement, and technically, in terms of the content, the stories, the poems that we cover, we do move fairly slowly. However, we do a much deeper dive than some of the other classes would be capable of. That's just not something that's in their wheelhouse at this point. So they move at their own pace. My second period is an ECE co-taught class, and of course they move at their own pace, and that pace is often slower than my other classes, um, which, you know, obviously it's important to, let them go at their own pace to the extent that I can keep up with the pacing guide for the curriculum. Um, and also to allow myself to just know that I've got, you know, a little bit of extra thing to plan or to remember, hey, this class didn't finish summary last time. We have to hit summary again. And it's to me, it feels difficult to have a class that is teaching the same curriculum as the others and they're just behind. So that I have to like always remember that they're behind. But, that's the job. They work at the pace that they work at. Um, so emotionally and socially, I especially wanted to touch on those because it has been a learning experience for me with sixth graders, regarding things like their ability to handle anger, their ability to know how to interact with each other without, fist flying and, slapping and touching and all this stuff that's going on in sixth grade. So there's a, you know, there's a difference from, when I've taught older grades, older people, older kids. Um, and so some of them are very emotionally developed as well as very cognitively developed. So, my AP class, I've got some kids in there that know how to handle their emotions, and they're also very advanced cognitively when it comes to English. But I also have kids in the same AP class who don't have the social and emotional development. So they still haven't learned how to interact with each other without the touching, the hand slapping, the screaming, the yelling, the disruption during class, because whatever they have to talk about is way more important, obviously, than English. Um, so, and that's just my AP class. So if I took my other ones, I've got tons of kids who just some very basic things like learning how not to shout out. They don't have that skill. And no matter how many times you say we don't shout out, it's it's like it's like there's this barrier and it just can't get past it. And so, I think it's nice that to know at some to some extent this is simply human development and they're just not to the place where they're ready to do this, ready to perform this task, whatever it might be. Um, so yeah, getting used to the fights and the things like that. And then the boys turn around, they just fought each other and then they're friends. And as an adult, that's hard to understand. Um, but again, we as adults are at a different place than the kids are. Um, and I wanted to touch on the linguistic part because we have so many MLs, and so I've got tons of MLs at the higher end, and they are fully fluently bilingual, trilingual, and more. Um, and at the same time, I've got some students who are still very much relying on their first language to get by, which is causing them real problems in English, because it's not the same as math. It's not numbers, that's some kind of universal language. Um, so English can be really tricky, and it's important to recognize again, they're going to move at their own pace. So I might have a sixth grader come in, tell me at the beginning of the year they don't speak much English, and my expectation is they're going to learn as we go. But now we're to this point in the semester, and it doesn't seem like there's any real learning going on. Um, so I have to be patient, um, and as helpful as I can be, you know, because obviously I'm not teaching English as a second language, but um, whatever help I can give with the visuals. Some of our novels come with Spanish copies. So the Spanish copies, that's not to say all of our MLs are Hispanic. They're not, but a large majority are Hispanic. So we carry those materials sometimes for some things. Um, and I believe that covers what I wanted to for being at their own pace. Okay, learning environments. So I want to discuss the pictures that are on this page before we move forward. First of all, in the top left, that's just my classroom. Um, Posters are covering the wall. There's one of those nice yellow charts on the screen that's pulled down over the window in the back. That blue poster that's sticking out over on the paneling is our wall of victory, where the papers that are mm, close to an A or above get put so that everybody can see how well everybody did. Um, and then I put the classroom stars here because um, the kids have really bought into this system. It's not a school-wide, it's just mine. Because I needed something to try to get the kids doing what they needed to be doing. So each of my classes is on that. Well, there's actually it takes two poster boards, but I only took a picture of one. Anyhow, all my classes are on the poster board. Um, the stars come in for, and I always stress this to the boys for doing extra. Like it's not just I did my work today, can I have a star? But it's I was quiet when everybody else was talking and I was ready to go. Or I gave a really great answer when nobody else was ready, or just a really great answer, that really stood out as being thoughtful and worth paying attention to. Um, so the classroom stars, the way that they work. Um, First of all, I want to stress that the kids will beg me for stars, and they will ask for anything. Can they have a star? Um, and the really great thing to me is, think of it what you will, but I now have much cleaner, neater, organized classes at the end of the class because I have kids who want to earn a star by going that extra mile and keeping their workspace clean. Um, I have students who do harder work and work to the finish instead of just part of it because they're hoping that they're going to get a star. Um, they're hoping that if they finish and everyone else doesn't finish, that'll be their extra and they can, get a star for that. So that is a big motivator for us. And I bring it up because I know part of the learning environment is having students motivated intrinsically, which is they don't need stars, they just want to do well to do well. And what I feel like is this system is a scaffold to get to that place. So at this point, they want the stars and will do anything at any cost for the stars. Even knowing that, it's a gamble. They might win this month, they might not win this month. They're still willing to put themselves out there and do these extra things, try these new things, do, whatever it takes to get them. And so, um, I know it's not the intrinsic motivation that we might all hope for, but I think it's okay to start training them to do things for an end result that's not going to come immediately because we run these contests for a month. And in fact, because of the holidays, it's running November to December. And they get antsy. They get, can I just have a price now? Can I just now? Um, but that's not the way it works. And so they know the system and they know, it's delayed gratification, but they find it worth it to do what they need to do. So again, I think it's a good way for them to practice what they're going to need to do later when it comes time to, there's nobody helping you or telling you what to do. You just got to do the right thing. All right, so I think I might have covered some of this, but students can work alone and with a group or a pair. So uh, as far as this goes, what I have found is that students have to work up to that, or at least my sixth graders do. They're not ready at that first, few months. Like we're not ready right now to be in groups. We are just getting to a place where we can handle pairs, elbow partners. That's the way to go for us right now. Now, by the end of the year, will we be in groups? I certainly hope so. I don't see why not, but not right now because again, it goes back to that social and emotional capacity. They just don't have enough to be in a group right now. We talked about motivation and then keeping students active in the learning process. So I get lots of volunteers to help me. I've been sick a lot with my losing my voice, and so they've wanted to play teacher for the day, and that suits me fine because I want number one, I appreciate their help, and number two, um, it's just exactly the kind of behavior I want in my classroom. Um, Assigned jobs. So I have some students that always do the same thing. And it's not like we ever officially assigned it. It's like they started doing it and nobody else did it. And so they just sort of picked it up and, hey, this is my thing, um, which is really nice. On the other hand, could I assign them? Absolutely. I just think that might lead to a little bit of chaos from the students who don't want to participate but end up getting assigned. Because I feel like if you're going to assign, you have to have a rotation where everybody falls in line at some point. Um, anyway, application of content. So, enhancing the way that you present your material. Um, so, we've got spurring critical thinking, collaborative problem solving, and connecting to authentic local and global issues. I included on this slide a little piece of the invitation to the graphic novel exhibition. So the class, again, AP class, they were studying a graphic novel, American Born Chinese, and then they got to create their own graphic novels through the process of reading that the American Born Chinese and observing what they needed to do, what it should look like, the conventions of the genre, all of that kind of stuff. And then it's actually, I think it wasn't my intention necessarily for it to apply to local and global issues, but somehow it got there because I got feedback. The exhibition was open to all staff, family, whoever wanted to come. So they came, and then they said, this was really great because all of the students did the assignment, created their character, wrote their story, but they all connected in some way to their own lives. And, they made this connection from fiction to their sort of reality. And I mean, looking back on it, yeah, they absolutely did that. Once I saw the final products, I didn't look at them until after didn't look at the whole project until after the exhibition happened. And so it was a really great way to get them looking for at the local issues. And then our current project, the Poetry Slam, writing in free verse about an issue they're passionate about, has them definitely thinking about global issues. So I've had a lot of students asked to write about bullying, racism, um, uh, things wrong with school, things wrong with society, AI. So lots of things that I'm really looking forward to seeing how they put that together. All right, assessment. Obviously, it is more than tests, and I've got a picture there on the left. I took a few of my students' graphic novels because I haven't given them back to them yet because they're going to need it for their backpack. So I'm holding on to them until the end of the year when there's potentially less likelihood that they will lose it. Um, but so those are a few of the covers of the graphic novels, and that is how they were assessed on that unit. I mean, there were formative assessments throughout the process of making the book, but the grade for the big project at the end, it wasn't a test, it was this graphic novel. It was the presentation of the graphic novel. So the exhibition required them to sit there and share it, explain it, read it to anyone from the principal down to a parent who showed up, because we had the whole range of folks who were there that day. And it was really, really great and a great way to see how well the kids had done. Sorry. Okay, here we go. So, formative assessments, um, those I really like as just a check for how the students are doing right now. Because if you take over the scheme of things, the summatives might be worth more, they might be more important, the school might care more about them, but the formatives happen more often. So it's important to have formatives that are going to tell you something about how the whole process of their learning is going. Um, so right now with our unit on poetry, formative assessments, I do check their poetry every now and then, because they have an ongoing portfolio. And so I check out what they've added, what kind of poetry they've chosen to add, and things like that. Um, the summative, again, for this class, for the poetry, it is not going to be a test. Um, for a lot of classes, due to the structure of the curriculum, it is a test. But for this class, it will be a poetry slam. And, it won't be something like, did they win the slam? Because that's like way too, I can't expect that of them. So I really want to know, did they wholeheartedly participate in it? That's much better. Um, so it is project based, and this one's also performance based because they are going to have to speak it in front of everyone I invited, which is the same staff, admin, parents, anyone who wants to come. And, the people at the school get really excited about this. So, after the first one going so well, I anticipate high attendance. So, part of my formative has to be that I give kids the opportunity to practice how they're going to speak their poetry because I don't want to just throw them to the wolves. So, there's that piece. Um, and we are really looking forward to this. It is in December. Um, and I know it's right before the holidays, so I'm hoping that's not going to affect anything, um, but I am really excited about it. Okay, the power of instructional strategies. So, vary your instructional approaches, encourage deep understanding and meaningful connection. Um, I had heard about this for a long time, creating a rubric with the students. And I guess I just didn't feel comfortable with it until, finally trying it this year with a group of students. And so I thought, let's see how this goes, because I can always tell them I have veto power. Um, so I told him, look, we're gonna have 4 areas, a point each, because we're gonna get 4 or 3 or 2 or 1 based on how we do. And so I started the students off and they just took off with it. Not only did they come up with how they wanted to be graded, knowing that this is what we're working toward, this is what has to be done before we leave for winter break. Um, so they decided what they were going to hold themselves accountable for, and they did it really well. I don't think I could have been harder on them than they were on themselves. So this was a really great opportunity because we got the chance to learn together. What do we care enough about that we want to be graded on? And we also got the opportunity to create, for them, they got the opportunity to create their learning experience. So that was really good. And that rubric now means something to them because it's not Miss Taylor handing it to them, it's something that we all made together. Leadership and collaboration. I know this is, cliche, no teacher's an island, but sometimes it does feel that way, especially if you don't, as we're having to do where we don't have subs, so we get pulled from our planning periods and we don't really have time to catch up with another teacher and even just to say how was your day, how were the kids, I had this problem, did you have this problem? um there's just so little time for that to happen, but it is important. And so the first bullet is to find opportunities to be responsible for student learning. um, to be responsible for student learning to me means that I do more than plan lessons. I know something about this kid. I know something about their life, something about what's going on. Um, and at this point, I know so much about so many of my kids' lives. It might be a little too much, but it's very helpful in terms of um, feeling like I can help this kid. Um, unfortunately, one opportunity for student learning that I have had to address this semester is involving the community in terms of CPS, due to issues that seem to be happening at home, and affecting the school, and that's a really uncomfortable place to be. Um, but I am glad, that I'm able to take advantage of the resources that do exist out there. Um, take teaching a step further. So to me, uh, one thing this means is, everybody in JCPS is all, I gotta get my 24 hours, I gotta get my 24, oh, I got my 24, of professional development. Um, to really take it a step further, the professional development has to continue even when no one's telling you to do it. It's like when we tell kids do the right thing when, no one's telling you to, or when no one's looking. As teachers, we have to hold ourselves accountable that, sure, okay, we finished the 24, but hey, it's only December, so we're not going to do any professional development until the end of the, or before the end of the year. That seems nuts. Um, so, again, taking advantage of resources that we have. Um, the last bullet is collaborating with all stakeholders for the benefit of the students. So stakeholders, of course, involve admin. So um, collaborating with vice principal, principal, whoever we need, to make things happen, counselors, instructional coaches, people who are involved in our PLC. Um, I still find it strange that we have people not only involved but leading our PLC who don't teach the subject. Um, but you know what? That is still me collaborating with all stakeholders, even if I don't understand why all the stakeholders are necessarily there at that particular time. So it is what it is. You collaborate with everybody. So the other important piece to all stakeholders, that's the parents. Um, and so collaborating with the parents is important because number one, I have never, I think never ever heard a parent so happy as when I called her to say, hey, I just had to share with you how amazing your son was today. He was in class, he was doing this, he was doing that, and I was just so, so impressed. And she was just like, I couldn't see her because we were on the phone, but I was picturing jaw dropped from her reaction and she was just so thankful. Like she kept thanking me for calling her and letting her know that. Um, and I'm happy to do that. I want to do more of those. Um, it's a sad fact that we don't have as much time as we'd like with planning's gone and things like that. And sometimes it does seem like all we have time for are the calls that we have to make in terms of like triaging the thing that went crazy wrong today. And those aren't fun calls with parents. I don't like those. I'd much rather call because they're amazing, which they are anyway, but let's put doing amazing work. Um, so that's one thing that I have there. And I just have a picture of my office phone because obviously that's how I use it to mainly communicate with parents. Though sometimes I um, uh, do emails or texts or something else if I can't reach them by phone. But phone's the main way and the best. I prefer to connect in the moment personally. All right, so this slide is going to give you an exit slip. You can click on the feedback. It might be control click, but it does work. I did check it. And you can click on the feedback and it's going to take you to a Google form and just ask you, I don't know, I think I might have put 3 questions. It's nothing major. Just some feedback on what maybe went well, what maybe didn't go so well throughout this presentation. So those are, uh, you will find that in the feedback. And if you have time to do it, that would be awesome. But it is there. And then just ending, wanted to make sure I have that reference in there for the K-tips for the website that I did pull it from. And that's pretty much all I have in terms of references. And then the other things that you'll be able to find uh, linked, well, or turned in, submitted with the presentation. I'll put the handouts in there, and I think I'm going to do a presentation description and then a reflection paper. And if there's anything in there I forgot, then there might be that too. Um, But regardless whether one person or more watches this and listens to it, I do appreciate your time and your attention as I talk about what I've learned and what I still am learning as I progress through this second year of middle school teaching with sixth grade.